Okay, so this is a brief video, or at least it should be a brief video, of me briefly explaining what are planetary yogas. What are yogas in Vedic astrology, or Jyotish, or sidereal, whatever the hell you want to call it. Um, Essentially, yoga, the word yoga, comes from the Sanskrit word yuj, Y-U-J, and apparently yuj means to join or unite or union. So essentially, the word yoga is just a phrase, a word to express a union. And when you hear astrologers or people talk about yogas and stuff in someone's chart, they are talking about the planetary combinations, the planetary unions that are being formed in a person's chart that will give certain results in someone's chart. Um, like you look at someone's chart and there's loads of infinite planetary combinations in someone's chart. There's possible hundreds of possibilities of planetary yogas that could be present in someone's chart that can make them wealthy, that can make them poor or in prison, that can give them great fame and success, that can deny them of marriage, that can deny them of bunch of stuff, that can deny them of children, bunch of planetary combinations that can fulfill things or deny things. And then there's some cases where you can have a beautiful chart that has beautiful planetary combinations that would provide you with potential fame or wealth, but it might never get activated. It might never happen because you might not ever run the planetary Mahadasha of that planet. So therefore, you'll always just have to, rely on maybe the brief little sub-periods, the antardashas of the planet that might be involved in the planetary yoga. Or you might have to rely on a transit of a major graha, a transit of a major planet like Saturn and Jupiter, or Rahu, the south node Ketu and the north node Rahu, transiting over the planets in those planetary yogas to give the effects of them. But yeah, it's essentially what Mark Boney says, who is a great astrologer. If y'all are knowledgeable enough in the astro community, or just a researcher want to learn astrology, you probably have heard of him in his books and probably see him on the KRS astrology channel. But it's like what he says. I heard him say before. Yogas show what, and dashas, the planetary time period, show when something will happen. I just want to make this little short video because even though this isn't really no complicated, lengthy video, I just figured for people who might not understand or hear the phrase yogas, they might think, what the hell is yogas? Are planets stretching and doing poses? No. Planets are not stretching and doing poses. It's just the planets are just aligned in certain ways in your house that form and create certain effects. And these effects get activated when you are running the planetary time period of that planet. They really get activated. There's so many yogas that it's impossible for me to it's impossible for me to cover them all, and it's impossible for anyone to remember all of the yogas. Like hundreds of yogas that are known, that are supposed to exist. It's impossible to remember and know them all. You just absorb them and learn them from experience, from memory, and stuff. But the major yogas that I'm pretty sure most people have heard about are Dun yogas, Gachkasari yogas, Raj yogas, and maybe a Mukuta Crown yoga, or Chandra Mongol yoga, or Chandra Adi yoga. All these different planetary combinations in someone's chart that can bless you with great fame and wealth and success to varying degrees. Like, for example, I'm trying to make this simple and not complicated, but I'm just be real broad in general. Because for me to get real specific, this would be a longer video, and I'm not trying to make it too complicated. But let's say that you have a Dun Yoga in your chart, or Gajkasari Yoga. Gajkasari Yoga is a combination of when Moon and Jupiter are in conjunction in your chart, or it's when Jupiter is either 4, 7, and 10 places away from the Moon. You end up getting a Gajkasari Yoga. And when you read and look up the effects of Gajkasari Yoga, it's supposed to bless you with great fame and abundance. And when you just look up what the hell is a Dun Yoga in general, a Dun Yoga is supposed to bless you with financial wealth or financial opportunities. Now, let's say you run into the planetary Mahadasha of the planet that is involved in the Dun Yoga, or the planetary time period of Moon and or Jupiter who form the Gajkasari Yoga. You're probably going to be psyched if you're an amateur. You're probably going to be psyched mentally thinking, oh man, this astrologer said that I have this combination, or I looked at my chart and I seen that I have this combination that can provide me with wealth and fame. I cannot wait till this time period come and I just be living the life that I want to. Well, if you go about that with every chart that you see, you will be wrong and disappointed a vastly great amount of the time. For most of the time, you'll be greatly disappointed, because what you have to do is you have to examine the planets that form that yoga. You got to see how great of a condition are they in. You got to see if they're in the Shunta houses that can cause, malefic negative effects like 6th, 8th, or 12th. Or you got to see who is aspecting the planets that are forming this Dun Yoga and this Gajkasari Yoga. You got to see if those planets are exalted or debilitated. You got to see if those planets in the D9 Navamsha chart, you got to see if those planets are either strong or weak in the D9 Navamsha chart. Because apparently the D9 Navamsha chart is a chart that is supposed to represent who do you become as you grow older. It's supposed to be a chart that represents who do you become after marriage, once you get married. It's a chart that shows if you can even get married or not. It's a chart that shows, the core, the inner workings of your planets. It shows who your planets grow and develop into over time. It shows who they are in their core, So if you got maybe a debilitated planet in your birth chart that is forming a Dun Yoga, you might think that, depending on how you interpret it, that it might not provide that great of a result. But then you see that planet is in a Dun Yoga combination again in the Navamsha, and then a planet is exalted or is receiving benefic aspects, and you say, oh shit, it looks bad or mediocre in my birth chart, but in my Navamsha it's going to give great results because that planet is in a good position. So you see how just a teeny bit intricate it can get to see the level of effects of a yoga, because you can have all the planetary combinations in your chart for fame, success, but it will never happen, or it won't be in a way that you think, if, for one, those planets are not in the best dignity. They're not in just good positions. It might just give you a very mediocre result. And it depends on if you'll ever really run the planetary time period of the planet that is involved in the combination. Preferably, like I said, the major period and not the sub period. Because, and I'm not trying to get too long-winded with Mahadashas, because that'll be its own little video and series. But I just wanted to make sure that y'all clearly understand what are yogas in general, and how do they get activated, and how can you decide the varying levels of effects of the yogas. Like I said, you see the varying levels of effects by examining the aspects, the conjunctions, the house placements, and where are they at in like the Navamsha or maybe the Dasamsha. That's how you see the D10 chart. And then you go see if you'll ever run the major time period of it in the Vimshodri Dasha. Preferably the major period, not the sub period. Because depending on what major period that you're running, the sub periods can be lasting for less than a year. So let's say that you have a beautiful combination in your chart that can give you marriage, children, great house, great for moving or whatever. You're running a sub period of it that might last only 10 months. And then within that 10 months, you might or might not achieve what you have hoped to do because the time period is so short. But if you're running a major period of the planet that is involved in this beautiful planetary yoga that you have in your chart, well then you'll most definitely have more time to go and achieve and get what you want. Because I don't remember the exact years of each of the planetary time periods, but I like to think that you'll at least get a minimum of 10 years for, or 5 to 10 years for whatever damn near major period that you run. I don't know. It's just more preferable and beneficial to land in a major time period versus a sub period when it comes to the planets that are involved in a fruitful yoga. That way you have more time, more years for you to utilize and benefit off of those positive energies versus you having less than a year to capitalize off of a yoga that is supposed to give you great beneficial results. And that is it. That is my conclusion on planetary yogas. I'm going to look at my phone, make sure I didn't forget nothing, but that is it. And see you next time whenever I make another little random video.